I'm sure that you, like me, were absolutely incensed when you saw the Mountain West proposed scheduling format for the foreseeable future. Absolutely terrible decision making by the Mountain West Conference leadership here at the top. I am proposing today a solution that would fix this disaster that the Mountain West has put forth. For those of you who haven't seen it, here it is real quick. You can see here that basically overall format, which I'm okay with the overall format. One division, guaranteed opponents, 6 Mountain West teams that you circle through, and 2 top teams meet in the championship. Most of that's okay. But the teams that were locked up solid, the 2 guaranteed opponents, the decision making at this point was an absolute disaster. Really, the only teams to come away with a actual solid rate ranking here as far as the teams they're going to be stuck with was Air Force, Colorado State, and Wyoming. That's pretty much it. I am today suggesting a new look at this, a new formatting. You'd still keep 2 guaranteed opponents, but we would produce a better system that would actually match up the best rivalries in the Mountain West, keep those best rivalries, those best matchups, better parity, and better TV ratings. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to look at this new format that I've come up with for the Mountain West for these guaranteed matchups that I think is going to be a much better solution going forward. So first off, here's my proposed solution, okay? So basically what the Mountain West has done, when you look at the chart, it has every team across all 12 teams, and it has all 2 teams for each rivalry. Basically, they've created 4 pods, 3 teams in each pod. So I'm doing the same system, 4 pods, but I moved some teams around, and this is going to be a much better solution going forward. So here's mine. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pods there. The first pod is basically the same as the current format. Air Force, Wyoming, Colorado State. Second pod, though, instead of Boise State being matched up against nobody, New Mexico, and non-rival Utah State, Boise State would actually be in a pod with 2 of its main rivals in the conference, Fresno State and San Diego State. This is a much better decision for Boise State and San Diego State, 2 of the top teams in the Mountain West who were absolutely shivved by this decision by the Mountain West. San Diego State in the previous format being matched up against Hawaii and Utah State, again, non-rivals there. Now we have 3 main rivals in the Mountain West in the same division. Third pod, Nevada, UNLV, Hawaii, preserves the rivalry between Nevada and UNLV, just as the previous system did. And then Utah State, New Mexico, San Jose State, kind of a hodgepodge of teams that don't really have rivalries. Utah State does have rivalry with Wyoming, but there really is no way of preserving that in this system or in the previous system, because Air Force, Wyoming, Colorado State, those do take precedence there as far as historic rivalries in the Mountain West. Okay, so let's look at why my plan is better than the previous plan proposed by the Mountain West. So the first plan only preserves 6 rivalries for the Mountain West. Air Force, Colorado State, Air Force, Wyoming, Wyoming, Colorado State, Fresno State, Nevada, Fresno State, San Jose State, Nevada versus UNLV. My plan preserves 7 rivalries for the Mountain West. And this is going to be much more important rivalries, much better matchups we'll talk about here in a second. So the rivalries that are preserved: Air Force versus Colorado State, the Ram Falcon Trophy; Air Force versus Wyoming, a game that's been going on since 1958; Wyoming versus Colorado State, the Border War, the Bronze Boot. So all those were from the previous system. But we add in here Boise State versus Fresno State, battle for the milk can; Boise State versus San Diego State, a game that has attracted millions of viewers. A big-time matchup has become a very bitter rivalry between the two from comments from previous San Diego State coach Rocky Long. Losses between Boise State and San Diego State, home and away. It's become a very, very competitive rivalry, one that needs to be preserved here. San Diego State versus Fresno State, battle of the oil can, and then Nevada versus UNLV, game that's still being in-state rivalry there that's preserved from the previous system. Now, 3 reasons that the system I've proposed is better than the previous one for the Mountain West. First off, better for rivalries. So in the previous system, you only have 3 trophies being preserved: Air Force versus Colorado State, Wyoming versus Colorado State, and then Fresno versus San Jose State. Those are only the 3 trophy games in the Mountain West that are preserved. Now this one, you have almost every single trophy game except for 2 are going to be preserved here for the Mountain West. You're going to get 5 trophy games versus 3. So while unfortunately you do have to give up the Fresno State versus San Jose State game, a game series that last year drew such low viewership that in the TV ratings it's listed as NA. It was so low, so negligible, they didn't even count it. You trade that for a system where Boise State and Fresno State get to play for the Battle of the Milk Can, and you get Fresno State versus San Diego State, Battle of the Oil Can. So you give up 1 trophy for 2 trophies, which I think is a much better deal here. And also, both those games getting much better viewership and much more important games for the Mountain West as top teams in the Mountain West compare versus each other, versus where San Jose State, not a perennial top team in the Mountain West, has its moments, has its years, but not a perennial team in the Mountain West. So you have 5 trophy games being preserved versus 3 trophy games. You lose Fresno State versus Nevada, which only drew 233,000 viewers last year, which is not a major game here for the Mountain West. And it really depends on whether Nevada is actually good that year or not. And then you also lose Fresno State versus San Jose State, which again, an important in-state rivalry, which they will still play. And it's not like you lose these games forever. You just lose the guaranteed nature of them. And you guarantee Boise State versus Fresno State, Boise State versus San Jose State, San Jose State versus Fresno State. This is a much better deal for all teams involved. Really, the only team that ends up getting gypped out here really is kind of Nevada, but they still get to keep one of their rivalries. Every team in the Mountain West that has a rivalry gets to keep it, except for Utah State. And Utah State and San Jose State. Utah State wasn't getting to keep a rivalry in the previous system anyway, and San Jose State gets knocked out of their guaranteed rivalry series, but instead 2 other teams in the Mountain West. So 2-for-1 deal, Boise State and San Diego State, better teams in the Mountain West, draw more viewership, more important to the conference. They get to keep their rivalries, or at least some of their rivalries, versus San Jose State. So we've already talked about how this is better for the rivalries. This is also better for the TV ratings. The games that I just talked about, I kind of already mentioned it when I was discussing this already, pulls in a lot more viewers for the Mountain West and brings a lot more notoriety to the conference. So it protects the better matchups here. So New Mexico versus Boise State pulls in 165,000 views. That's what we had last season. Boise State versus San Diego State, 1.95 million viewers. That's what we had last year. Boise State versus Utah State, yeah, that gets a lot of views. But Boise State versus Fresno State will get more views. Definitely in the millions there. A matchup that is always a big-time one for Boise State versus Fresno State. Of course, you've got the Dairy Farm Associations of Idaho and California there that are sponsoring the Milk Can Trophy, and it's been a very important series, really probably one in the modern era. I know there's other historical factors here for rivalries in the Mountain West, but in the modern era, the post-2000 era, Boise State versus Fresno State, those have been the 2 teams in the Mountain West. That's been the most important rivalry for the Mountain West in the modern era of college football, and that preserves it. Now, if I'm looking at this from a critical view as saying, why did the Mountain West make this horrible decision with these teams? When you look at who their guaranteed opponents are, Boise State, Fresno State, and San Diego State, the 3 top teams in the Mountain West get off pretty much scot-free here as far as guaranteed opponents. Boise State, Utah State, and New Mexico. Utah State, of course, a team that has been doing better, won the Mountain West, of course, last season, but not one of the teams that's been a perennial top dog in the Mountain West. Fresno State plays Nevada and San Jose State, and San Diego State plays Hawaii and Utah State. The 3 top teams in the Mountain West, as far as what's been the trend, Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, don't have to play each other for sure in this guaranteed schedule here. And it basically ensures that one of those teams, those two out of those 3 teams are probably going to meet in the Mountain West Championship game. That's kind of what if I'm looking at why the Mountain West made this decision, that's probably what I'm looking at. It gives a chance for one of those 3 to not be scathed by the others and then meet in the Mountain West. And a lot of years they won't, or some years they won't even end up playing each other. However, I think that is incredibly short-sighted by the conference, because what it basically does is, it knocks out important rivalry games. It basically negates the regular season. And I've always argued that the regular season is the heart of college football. Bowl season, it becoming increasingly meaningless for college football. The regular season is where the viewership comes in, where the fan buy-in comes in, where the actual commitment comes in. Regular season is the most important part of college football, and this really minimizes the importance of the regular season. It also ends up in situations like in 2024 schedule for Boise State, where they only play really a cakewalk there. I mean, teams will be up and down, but really the only team here that's shown consistent success, and I can't even say consistent success because they just pretty much lost their entire coaching staff. Here's Nevada. Nevada and Utah State, maybe the only 2 teams on there that would present a true challenge for Boise State. And depending on the year, they might not even be. It's a cakewalk for Boise State. But what this does is when you don't have your best teams playing each other every single year, you basically ensure that the potential champion, maybe they're undefeated, but the potential champion that you're putting forth for the Mountain West is not going to stack up compared to the other group of 5 champions, because they're not going to have the schedule. Mountain West is an incredibly tough conference, but it's only tough if you're playing the top tier teams. The bottom tier teams in the Mountain West, they pretty much line up the rest of the group of 5. They are not as competitive as the top teams. Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, those are the top 3 ones. And then Air Force, good on a lot of years. Boise State's not going to be playing them guaranteed. So Boise State needs to, or San Diego State or Fresno State, whoever that champion is, it's going to be presented for the Mountain West. In order for them to be climbing the ratings, in order for them to be getting national respect, undefeated is not going to do it. That's not going to be enough. One loss is not going to do it. They need to have good records, and especially the way the playoff committee, the way that they create their rankings. Maybe if we were going to the AP, then we could go with just straight up, it doesn't matter who they play as long as they're undefeated. But if you're talking about the college football playoff committee who cares about the matchups, they have said that over and over again, that the record is not as important necessarily as the teams that you're playing. They're going to look at a cakewalk schedule like Boise State's 2024 schedule, undefeated in that schedule, depending on where Boise State starts the preseason rankings, depending on who's on the committee that year. I mean, they might barely even crack the top 18 on that. I'm being serious. An undefeated Boise State in that schedule may not even crack the top 18, depending on who their out-of-conference foes are there. And this is all shifting all over the place as realignment continues to happen across conferences. Depending on who they play in their non-conference schedule, that could determine basically whether or not they even end up being a ranked team that even competes for year 6, even as an undefeated Mountain West champion. You need to have your best teams playing each other to bring in attention to the conference, to bring in that TV ratings, to bring in the fan buy-in, which again, a lot of these Mountain West teams have been struggling with keeping fans over the years, maintaining the fans in the stands, which is the most important part of college football. If you want to keep the packed stadiums for the Mountain West teams, if you want to keep these fan buy-ins, you need to give them good matchups to go to every season. Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, it's better for the TV ratings, it's better for the fan buy-in, and it's better for the overall perspective of the Mountain West. And it ensures that your champion that you present, even if they have a loss, is going to have a win against a quality team and is going to be presenting themselves as a top group of 5 champion in the nation. The last point here, the third point, and I'll wrap this up because we're almost done. The last point here is that it's better parity overall. These 4 pods that I've suggested here, these 4 pods are going to be much better parity compared to what we have currently in the system that's being proposed by the Mountain West. Air Force, Wyoming, Colorado State, that's a pretty solid pod. Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, of course, is going to be a little more top-heavy. But you don't have systems where you just have a couple garbage teams here and one king ruling over all of it. You actually have parity between all 4 systems. Good teams playing good teams. Nevada, Hawaii, UNLV, yeah, those teams are going to have down years, but Hawaii and Nevada have both shown themselves capable of performing well and having good seasons. And then Utah State, San Jose State, both those are the previous conference champions there. Last year, Utah State, and the year before that, San Jose State. Now in the same pod, playing each other. Definitely teams that have shown themselves able to rise up over adversity and to have good quality seasons. We'll have to see if they can maintain them, but there are teams that have been able to show themselves consistent over the years. I think overall, this system that I'm suggesting, this 4-pod system here with these 3 teams in each that I'm proposing, is going to be much better parity overall. You're going to get better, you're going to preserve more rivalries and better rivalries, you're going to get better TV ratings, and you're also going to have better parity throughout the whole. Thank you for listening to me today. If you want to watch my reaction video to the scheduling format that the Mountain West suggested, which I put out yesterday, I'll put that link in the description. Please like and subscribe. I'm previewing the Boise State 2022 football season. Actually, today, Tyler Rouse is going to be coming on my channel, and we're going to be previewing the Boise State special teams, and I'll have that video out hopefully this weekend. So make sure you like and subscribe. Don't miss any great Mountain West or Boise State content. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, go!